everyone. Welcome to the session called Accentuate the Positive Remote Learning and the Future of Language Education. I'm Deok Lee, for someone who don't know me. And one of the session organizers, I would like to have some word to introduce the session and talk a little about the background of this, how we came up with the idea to organize this session. So I think many of you had a same or similar experience as mine, but it was this February when I heard about some disease called corona or COVID, in Japanese, Shingata Uris, and on news is but I didn't realize that time its impact on our lifestyles and our teaching. I was just busy to prepare my new semester, and also I had some plans to go to conferences overseas in July and December, so busy. So I didn't know how it would change our lifestyle and our teaching until I heard that so many people, thousands of people get infected, and sadly many people died every day, and international travels were all banned. The situation changed then very quickly. And all of a sudden, I was told that we have to teach now in the remotely. I was told that to attend some training session for use of some software called Zoom. What is Zoom? At that time, I heard this somewhere before, but I never had any concrete idea. Rather, it's similar as Skype and something like that. And anyway, it was so frustrating for me to get used to the remote teaching. I had I had to convert all my teaching material to the online form. I had to change my assessment for small weekly quizzes and midterm test, big final exam. So for it took hours and hours of my time. But I realized that remote teaching is not done by simply converting materials to the remote mode, especially for language classes where the spontaneous interaction between teachers and the student and among students is crucial for the success of learning process. So I was curious at time that other people, language teachers in particular, how they could deal with their classes in awful situation. So that's a basic idea how we came up with to organize this session. But I must confess that my initial approach to the session was based on some negative feeling, given that I didn't choose this remote mode teaching by myself. But it was a first situation, and it was a first learning environment I had to rather than I preferred. So what it came up with the idea to organize this session, my attitude or my feeling was how we can cope with this unhappy situation and how we can just get out of this dark, endless tunnel and so forth. Very negative feeling I had time. But fortunately, I was lucky enough to have a good co-organizers, my colleagues, who suggested me to look at the bright, positive side of it. The current situation, for example, give us some opportunity to learn some new technologies and techniques to learn our online classes. And I learned actually many things, how to create online materials and quizzes and so forth, and which I probably never experienced sufficiently before. I although created some materials and quizzes just a little bit, but it required a huge amount of work and thought to create and get some productive skills, I guess. So why don't my eyes, my insight to some extent, to actually large extent, and I can I thought I would be able to use these techniques for my in-person teaching in the future when everything gets back to normal, which I hope happen soon. So my point is that what underlies this session is our hope that we can have some moment. This one gives some opportunity for us to look back our own teaching and get some further positive feelings about remote teaching and learning through the variety of presentation in this session, which I hope give you some insights for the future of yours and actually our language education. So that's how we came up to idea to organize this session. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share with you. Thank you for listening. Okay, so it's actually a good time to start session. So as you probably know, we have 8 presentations for today. We have 4 today and the 4 tomorrow. Okay, so start is by Dr. Eun-sun Kim. Before we start our first presentation, let me briefly talk about housekeeping stuff. First, during the presentation, please keep your mic mute. And second, question, comment. If you have any questions, comments, then at the end of a presentation, please put in the chat box either question or comments, or both if you have both things. And then the speaker will answer questions in order they appear until the time allows. Yeah, you ask some questions, but this time wouldn't allow you the speaker to answer your question. You can contact the speakers during the break or even after the session, something like that. Okay. Any questions from you? Everything is okay? Okay, then can you start the first presentation? Dr. Eun-sun Kim. She's talk about the multimedia, the activities for interactive language and cultural education, which I think is very important for language class, even in-person setting. Okay, Eun-sun, Dr. Kim. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not sure how I can share my slides because I don't see the share button here on my side.
Why? Oh, okay.
It should be down the bottom of your screen, Yunsun. There should be a big green button.
Yeah, oh, I just have leave and then nothing.
Really? That's okay. Then let me give me a second. I have your
okay.
I have to do this. Then I will open another one.
Okay, now I see.
Huh?
Now I
you
see.
got it?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I think I'm one of the hosts now. So yes, no problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Is my screen visible now?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just tweak a little bit. Okay, thank you for having me today. I'm very happy to be here as a first speaker. I'm honored to be as a first speaker. And today I'm going to talk about the multimedia activities for interactive language education. So earlier this year, like Togyang said in the introduction, the rapid transition from face-to-face to remote learning in the light of COVID-19 made me think a lot about interactive learning. Forming speaking groups and switching group members were much more difficult and time-consuming in Zoom meetings. Interactions with students in breakout rooms kept me busy jumping one group to another group. Physical distance set more limits to communication between me and my students and among my students. So students had to also practice alone without having their regular usual partners in classroom sitting next to them. So language learning is all about interactive communication, but interactive communication in online education was very different from face-to-face learning. So students looked more stressed out and less focused in virtual classes. I had to change the ways I usually run in-class activities in virtual classrooms. So in this presentation, I'd like to talk about YouTube media learning, especially online film reviews as a learning and teaching tool for interactive language education. As a case study, I'll share my experience from an advanced Korean language course that I taught last semester. I hope this presentation can provide you with a few ideas about how to use multimedia resources and facilitate students' learning of their target language and culture. So this is the brief outline of my presentation. First, I briefly want to introduce a few issues about multimedia learning and teaching in language education. And then I will move on to how I use online film reviews in language classrooms. And I will share a bit about challenges and strategies for improvement. So I haven't tried my strategies for improvement, but I think I can share a few tips that I think I want to try next semester if I teach the same course again. So multimedia learning for language education. So by definition, multimedia often refers to the presentation of audio and visual materials. And for example, popular movie or drama genres, or documentaries, TV programs, commercials, music videos, and student-made videos are all sources of multimedia. And also by multimedia technology, it often involves computer mediated learning. Probably most of us are familiar with the benefits of multimedia technology and resources. So multimedia in language education is certainly one of the most wanted and interested language materials by language learners. A lot of students in my Korean language courses say that they started learning Korean even by themselves because they were sick and tired of waiting for this proper subtitles, and they couldn't wait longer. So they really want to learn a colloquial Korean expressions and real Korean from multimedia resources. And so it's very interesting and motivating for students and efficient language learning tool, because it can accommodate students' diverse needs and goals. They can be interested in different genres and different types of storylines. So it's very learner-based model, and very relaxed, because rather than working or reading the formal like piece of paper review, watching TV dramas or movies sounds a lot more fun and relaxing and entertaining, and so less stressful for students. Whereas they can also learn quite deeply about the Korean society and culture. So we are all familiar with these kinds of benefits, but also I haven't actually seen that many articles talking about bad cases, like what are the challenges? Is it really efficient or interactive? Because that's what I was interested in. There are a few generic techniques for sharing video clips in teaching as an efficient and interactive learning and teaching tool. Specific guidelines include like the content should be short and not that complicated, and the linguistic level should be proper, and there are some gender or interest issues among students, so you have to keep in mind, and that kind of things. So using multimedia in teaching and language teaching is nothing new, but the question of how to use multimedia resources efficiently is the main concern here. So my approach to multimedia learning and teaching in language education highlights how to facilitate interactive learning and stimulates critical thinking through films, especially online film reviews. So before I move on to how I ran the online film reviews, let me briefly talk a little bit about the advanced Korean language course that I taught last semester. So this course aims to teach both language and cultural contents of Korean through K-dramas. And the learners are fairly advanced learners. So maybe like early, low advanced or intermediate advanced, they are familiar with most of the grammar patterns to get them going in daily conversations, but they do need to practice spontaneous speaking and discussions, and they lack critical thinking sometimes, and then they need to be exposed to authentic materials. So we met online once a month, once a week, and 3 times, 3 hours per week. So each week we covered one movie and we discussed and watched the film reviews. So there are mainly 3 multimedia activities that I use in this course: online film reviews as part of in-class activities, and 2Dub. I highly recommend this application. This is a smartphone application where students can actually dub short clips from TV series or movies or stuff like that. And also I use creative radio dramas or podcast discussions as part of students' group project. So students learned how to speak, and then they were exposed to authentic materials. Also, eventually they get to create their own materials. So let's move on to the actual running of this film reviews. I'd like to talk about first the available sources, what kind of resources were available on YouTube, and then move on to the contents, actual contents of the film reviews, and in-class learning activities with online film reviews, and then learning outcomes. So there are basically 3 kinds of available resources on YouTube in terms of online movie reviews. First kind is movie interviews with directors or actors or actresses. It could be part of the segments from a Korean variety show or a separate show dedicated to movie reviews. And the second kind is movie reviews and recommendations from TV shows. And the third one is the most common one, the film reviews by amateur or professional film critics on YouTube. So this is one of the TV variety shows called Movie Room. And here is an interview with the director and the panels here. And as you can see, the atmosphere is quite relaxed and entertaining. And the other one is the individual movie review by YouTuber. And as you can see, both of these clips have subtitles. So while students are listening, they can also check out what's said in those segments. And they are quite short and entertaining and informal. So the contents of film reviews mostly summaries, simple summaries. So there is one narrator talking about the major events and the storylines of the movies, and sometimes they add other stuffs. For example, their commentaries or behind stories if it was an interview with the movie directors and actors. So this is one of the movie review TV programs called I Love Movie. And this is the part of the segments, and they are professional movie critics. And what's interesting in this segment is that after they talk about new movies or like worth watching movies, and then they, as a professional, they give their star review, as you can see here, and then they leave their own like one-line review. So in sum, right? So using these resources, let's move on to the actual process in class. So the process can be divided into 3 different steps: preparation and watching and task solving activities. So for preparation, I go through usually vocabularies and key vocabularies, and then I help students understand the task, what's expected after watching the movie clips. And we watch the movie clips in class and and then they read and then they listen. So they read the subtitles and while they listen to the movie reviews. So it's pretty much interpretive activities. After that, and then we create small groups and then go through the tasks and communicate activities. So most of the task solving types are questions for small group discussions. And now I'd like to share some of the samples from actual lecture slides and tutorials. And then we do the presentation afterwards. So this is a clip from an interview with one of the directors. And here you can see the list of vocabulary, so new words, and then my question here. So this segment is about a movie director talking about why he started to make this film specifically, what motivated him, and then the panels ask questions about what makes this movie different from other similar genres. This is another slides from other movie reviews. So after we watch a movie review and I collect a series of still images from that reviews, and then I just jumble them and then ask students to describe each image and put them into order. So this is more like a relay storytelling in correct order as part of review activities. Last example that I want to share is from Train to Busan. So here are the a list of discussion questions about this movie. And this example is from the second last week of the semester. So the tasks are more advanced than comprehending like plots and storylines and major events. So the first question is actually about the description and analysis of events. So what kind of reactions have you noticed in this movie to a disaster situation? So horror or sacrifice and selfish people and sadness and that kind of reactions. The second type of question here is the evaluation of movie based on personal experience. So what did you find interesting or impressive? One scene, pick one scene and then tell us why. The last question is about assessment of the movie by expressing opinions. So the question was about why do you think that this movie was so popular? It drew more than 10 million audience, and then why do you think that it was so popular? And why do you think that what makes this movie different from other horror movies or zombie movies? Now I'd like to share some of my learning outcomes. So online film reviews may not be different from regular film reviews on a piece of paper. I myself started using an online film review as a supplementary learning material, as I simply thought that it'd be great to have an additional audio and visual input to remind students of the storyline of a film. And students want to watch the film, and I cannot show all the film, the entire film in class. It was waste of time, but they expect to be exposed to film clips. And it was quite hard and time consuming for me to create movie clips, and it was not that efficient time-wise. So I was struggling, and then I stumbled upon this YouTube film reviews. So I thought, okay, maybe I can use this. However, using video clips on YouTube turns out to be more beneficial than I expected to students' learning motivation and causing their interest. Learners have a new native speaker in a virtual classroom to help them with learning. So these invited guests in YouTube clips create a sort of a interactive learning. Hello? Can anybody? Did I lose anybody?
We can still hear you.
We
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay, can you see my screen?
No, I think.
Should I share my screen again?
If you can, yeah, you're still hosting, you can do that, yeah.
Okay. Oh, shit. Okay. I'm almost done.
Yeah, you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. Is this working?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, however, using video clips turned out to be more beneficial for students learning. So students have this invited guest, and then this guest helped to create sort of an interactive learning environment. So they could demonstrate how to explain the plot, and also they can share extra like behind stories, like how the movie director came up with this movie, and then what intentions he had, and then what episode he'd had. And the students also participate in and sharing their own ideas, so they can reproduce like movie summaries, or also they can apply what they learned from the movie clips by sharing like on one-line reviews, or give their own star movie review. And also they can critique what the YouTubers said. So I had a bit of challenges. For example, the level was sometimes of the contents were quite difficult, and then it created burden for students, and then it was very time consuming. Also, the simple Q&A format was very simple, and then it was kind of a passive learning for students sometimes. So I'd like to share some suggestions. Basically, it has 3 steps: pre-class activities and in-class and post-class activities. So these are the highlights. So it's a sort of a flipped learning structure. So I thought that next time I can give the vocabulary and task and even share the movie clips in advance so that students can learn by themselves alone. In class, I can focus on sharing ideas. So, and then I asked students to come up with their own questions. And then I thought that I need to make more diverse problem-solving tasks. And then here are some examples. So I can create more quizzes, for example, like trivia or box of lies or 2 truths and 1 lie, or storytelling with images. So students just simply don't have to answer questions to my answer to my questions. And also I thought that I need to use more role-playing tasks. For examples, like different summary of a movie from a standpoint of different characters in the movies. For example, if I'm covering the animation Frozen, then Elsa can create her own summary, and then Elsa's sister can create her own version of summary. And also, I can encourage students to come up with their own critique with reasons. And as part of the post-class activities, online participation might be good. So now, after talking in class, they can work on their writings and then leave comments on others' opinions. So that's about it. In conclusion, I think the use of multimedia resources require careful planning to meet the goals of enhancing students' interpretive and interpersonal and presentational communication skills. So using these online film reviews, we can design efficient and engaging and integrated learning activities in remote learning, even when students are physically distant. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, San. Yeah, it's a question and comments time. Can you, Kinoshita Sensei, you want to talk to her or?
Okay, if there's any other questions, I just wondered what I find in advanced language class, the students' language level are quite different. So I just wondered how this task worked with a particularly competent student and a weaker student.
Yes, that's inevitable issue in advanced courses. So I had the similar issue. So that's why I thought that it would be better to give and share the questions and clips in advance so students can learn themselves. And one of the benefits of YouTube clips is that you can use different speed for playbacks. So if you want to like listen to the movie clips, review clips over and over again, you can do so. And also for advanced learners, we had a couple of heritage students and also even close to native level students. And then for these students, I challenged them by asking like critical questions rather than, listening and comprehension questions. Did I answer your question?
Thank you, she said. Okay, any other questions or comments? There's no. May I ask a very quick question then? Question rather than, yeah, probably, Eunsun, you probably have explained already, but you show the movie in class? all of them, or?
No, I didn't have time to share.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
To show the movies, and then it was impossible due to the license.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so usually I share a movie review, like a piece of paper, written form, but it was not enough. And then I still wanted to show a few movie clips. I thought that that was the best thing for me to use the time more efficiently. And also I asked students for their individual task, and you can say among 10 films, you need to watch 1 or 2 films entirely at home by yourself, and then come up with your review. So
I
that's
don't know if
great.
it's all movies available on YouTube, but I found that I sometimes use that movie clips. At YouTube, I found that there are digest version of movie reviews, which shows all of them.
Yeah,
very
that's exactly what I'm
digest,
talking
yeah.
about. Yeah,
Okay, you
yeah, 10 minutes
yeah.
usually.
Yeah, 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, okay.
For
Yeah,
their
that's good.
movie reviews, like a written task, then they can watch their movies. They can have access online, like through Netflix or whatever. And then also the university library had all the list of movies that I wanted to show.
Okay.
So they could have their access.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions, or it's okay? Okay, then yeah, thank you, Eunsun. Thank you for.
Thank you.
Yeah, very quiet, but I think they clapped. Okay, then yeah, I can see lots of clap marks. Thank you. Okay, our next presenter is Professor Toda. Probably the connection, the Japan. She's in Japan, and Japan is under the influence of the big typhoon at the moment. So I thought that it would be good to show you the pre-recorded presentation. So she sent me the clip. So please let me share this one. Give me a second. Okay. I have to use PC now.
Thank you very much. Today,
can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes, we can hear the video fine, Dr. Young.
today I'd like to talk about positive transformation to remote language learning, practice and effect of peer assessment. Recent advances in information and communication technology have allowed us to practice new remote learning activities which were previously inconceivable. ICT enables us to practice new approaches to language education, such as active learning, flipped learning, and blended learning. Today, I would like to talk about online peer assessment and report my research findings from the big data in my MOOC program. Finally, I'd like to consider the impact on instructional design and suggest Spark, small private online course. A massive open online course, MOOC, Japanese Pronunciation for Communication, I'll call it JPC, has been open to the public since November 2016. This course is offered by edX, a global MOOC platform jointly developed by Harvard and MIT. MOOCs are growing rapidly to meet an increasing need for open education globally and locally. There are many platforms such as Coursera, developed by Stanford University, which offers more than 3,900 courses, and edX, developed by Harvard and MIT, which offers more than 2,500 courses. ANUX currently offers 8 courses in edX, such as Astrophysics, Cosmology by Professor Brian Schmidt. Open Universities Australia is a local MOOC platform that has more than 390 degrees and 2,350 subjects. Other local MOOC platforms include FutureLearn in the UK, JMOOC in Japan, KMOOC in Korea, Xuetan in China, ThaiMOOC in Thailand, and so on. So why MOOCs? To quote Daphne Koller, founder of Coursera, Stanford University, to bring the best quality education to as many people as we could, so we formed Coursera, whose goal is to take the best courses from the best instructors at the best universities and provide it to everyone around the world for free. MOOCs have an inherent social impact. In the United States, MOOCs are recognized as valuable open educational resources, enhancing the job prospect for a better future. By being able to present verified certificates from the universities recognized all over the world, such as Stanford, Harvard, and MIT, learners can demonstrate their motivation, dedication, and perseverance, in addition to their self-management and time management skills. JPC is the first Japanese language-related course offered by a global MOOC. The course provides an opportunity to practice pronunciation for people who are interested in learning Japanese. JPC is distributed worldwide to learners and teachers involved in Japanese language education at no charge. More than 70,000 people have registered from 170 countries and regions. The final goal of JPC is to attain proficiency of Japanese pronunciation so that you can accurately convey your message and share your feelings. The aims of this online course are: 1. Acquisition of phonological knowledge. 2. Consciousness raising in pronunciation. 3. Vocalization practice and continuation. All of which are necessary to achieve proficient Japanese pronunciation.
Dr. Lee, can you hear me? If there's any problem, I can continue presentation here.
Thank you very much. It will help learn.
That should be
Page of
fine.
edX says free online courses, advance your career, improve your life. These are the contents of the course, not only lectures, but also Japanese pronunciation and culture through conversation, education of Japanese pronunciation around the world, and also shadowing practice materials, weekly quizzes, and final test. Pronunciation check, which is a peer assessment I'm going to talk about today. And finally, pronunciation forum. The course description about lectures says, Professor Toda, as your pronunciation teacher, will explain the mechanism of Japanese sound system and practice pronunciation together with you. You can also use the audio player to practice at your own pace. Japanese pronunciation and culture through conversation. This material focuses on phonetic sounds through conversation. This material will help learners to be aware of pronunciation in realistic context. Further, cultural introduction, which is related to the conversation content, will be useful to help understand cultural aspects. Next is shadowing practice material. This material contains audio files for shadowing practice. In each lecture, you can practice 3 shadowing sessions. In section 1, we'll introduce the methods for shadowing practice. There appear Pronunciation forum is an open space to exchange opinions. Pronunciation check is an assignment where you submit a recorded audio file. They appear assessed by fellow learners. You can receive feedback from other students around the world to see if your pronunciation conveys your intended messages. As soon as you have provided more than 5 feedbacks to fellow learners, you start receiving feedbacks from others. JPC has 5 lessons, section 1 to section 5. Each section takes about 2 to 3 hours or 1 week to complete. And these are the assignments. 1. Quizzes, 40%. 2. Pronunciation check, 10%. 3. Final test, 50%. When learners are taking JPC self-paced, quiz is worth 50% and final test 50%. The passing grade for the course is 60%. Learners must score at least 60% to be qualified for a verified certificate. This is the screenshot for pronunciation check. It says download and playback the attached audio file and assess whether the pronunciation accurately conveys the meaning in Japanese. What aspect of pronunciation stood out to you? What was good? What could be improved? These are the examples of pronunciation check recordings. Now I'd like to talk about peer assessment analysis. These are my research questions. 1. Comments from peer assessment pointing out details or specifics and how to correct them. 2. Can online peer assessment on pronunciation facilitate students' learning? We've collected 5,458 peer assessment feedbacks from Section 1 to Section 5. 1,030 comments by constant participants are analyzed based on concreteness and positiveness. In this presentation, I'd like to focus on concreteness. Example of the comments for concreteness are shown in this slide. 659 comments were not only pointing out the problems, but also pointing out how to correct them. For example, good point. I think your pronunciation is clear. Improvement point. You pronounced like omedetou gozaimasu, arigatou gozaimasu. You should pronounce like omedetou gozaimasu, arigatou gozaimasu. To or to, you'll be better. 332 comments were pointing out the problems, but not pointing out how to correct them. For example, ございの箇所がごじゃいと聞こえてしまいます。The differences between the two types of comments were statistically significant. Obviously, there are 0 comments that did not point out problems and yet pointed out how to correct them. Finally, there are 39 comments that did not point out the problems, nor pointed out how to correct them. For example, ちょっと日本人っぽくないと思います。These are the numbers and percentages of 1,030 comments from section 1 to section 5. Now, I would like to explain why so many students were able to make concrete comments. There's a correlation between students' comments and content of the lectures. For example, student C's comments show clear viewpoints based on the phonetic items introduced in the lectures. In section 1, I talked about overall pronunciation points introduced in the course, such as accent, intonation, and rhythm. So student C says, good pitch accent and intonation. Rhythm of speech needs a little improving. It sounds like you're saying arigato. Then in section 2, I went into the details of accent. So student C says, your pronunciation's alright, but usage of pitch accents is incorrect. Then in section 3, I went into the details of intonation. So student C commented on the prosodic features. In section 4, I introduced the pronunciation of colloquial Japanese. So student C focused on the pronunciation of nakya and chao. Finally, in section 5, I talked about becoming a pronunciation expert and introduced shadowing. And that's also reflected in the comments. So we can see that the students C definitely watched the lecture video content and applied the phonological knowledge obtained from lectures to peer assessment. Student is some examples to show you how the quality of comments improved over time. Student E's earlier comments to a peer said, it's good, but the second sentence needs improvement on clearer pronunciation. This comment was not very specific. Then student E received comments from another peer. Their comments are more concrete and specific, such as, try to get more rising intonation on janai, and also all of your L's sound like E. An interesting point is that after receiving such concrete comments from a peer, student E also started giving concrete comments to peers, such as, pronunciation sounds pretty good, but intonation and pace needs improvement. Your intonation sounds like you're asking questions rather than making statements. Okay, here's our conclusions. 1. The students who maintained constant participation in peer assessment continually provided comments with details or specifics that are not only pointing out problems, but also how to correct them. These comments demonstrated clear viewpoints constructed from the phonetic items introduced in the lecture video content. 2. The results show that the learners were able to continue learning pronunciation through the online course, and that peer assessment facilitated their learning. The quality of their comments can also be improved. This shows empirical evidence on the effectiveness of peer assessment. Additionally, in the current project I'm working on at the moment, we've investigated how students' actual pronunciation changed before and after the course, and we found that there's an improvement. Utilizing ICT is one way to solve problems involved in traditional approaches of face-to-face instruction. It helps both learners who wish to improve pronunciation but don't have opportunities to practice, and instructors who would like to teach pronunciation but don't have enough time left in the classroom. So I've implemented JPC and designed a small private online course, Spark, at Waseda University. I've applied the concepts of flipped classroom and blended learning. Spark refers to a version of a MOOC used locally with on-campus students. Sparks are focused on certain groups of students which are qualified to take the course. I developed 4 types of resources. 1, a textbook published from 3A Corporation. The textbook contains 20 lessons and 20 lecture videos that are uploaded in the publisher's website. 2, 15 on-demand lecture videos to cover 1 semester at Waseda University. 3, 45 shadowing practice materials. 4, the JPC that I've talked about today. 5, BBS, which is an equivalent of the pronunciation forum, where you exchange your opinion, and 6, pronunciation check, where you record and submit your recordings to receive feedback. I'm using TA for pronunciation check for this Spark at the moment, but the research findings imply that it may also be possible to introduce peer assessment. I think it is very important to let students interact with others throughout the learning process. Such interaction cannot be provided by the traditional repeat after me approach, where teachers give model pronunciation and their students simply repeat it. These are references. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to take a part of this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Dr. Lee.
Yeah. Thank you to the sensei. I think I had some problem when I download your file. There's some
No,
parts.
not a problem. No problem at all.
It's okay.
It takes a little bit of time to download the video, but it's okay because this movie is going to be uploaded on my webpage at Waseda University.
Okay.
So if you're interested, please come and visit me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank for the presentation. Any questions or comments? So if there's no question, I just from my curiosity, how does that MOOC goes? I mean, it's quite when did you start that MOOC lecture?
Yes. In 2016, November, we started this as a part of Waseda X. And ANU also has 8 courses as a part of ANU X. So we're colleagues.
I had to try it. I heard that some courses on MOOC. So
I might actually share the page if it's okay. Dr.
yeah, please.
Okay. Can you
fine.
see the MOOC, the top page for Japanese pronunciation for communication?
It looks good.
Can you see Nihongo? Can you see that? Or
Yeah.
can you see my picture?
No, I can see that.
You can see this, okay? And let me know if the movie is moving. Is this moving okay? Welcome to Japanese pronunciation for communication. It's okay, Dr. Lee?
Yeah, looks good. Okay.
昨日どこ行ったの？映画見に行ったんだ。誰と？友達と。あ、おはよう。おはよう。おはよう。
皆さんはせっかく日本語の単語や文を覚えたのに、いざ使ってみると言いたいことがうまく伝わらないという経験をしたことがありませんか？
どっか行った？病院に行った。病院？大丈夫？頭痛い？違う。病院。
本講座では内容や気持ちがきちんと伝わる発音で日本語が話せるようになることを目標に発音練習の方法を紹介し発音を学習する機会を提供していきたいと思います。伝えたい気持ちや内容がきちんと伝わる発音で日本語が話せるようになりましょう。
どっか行った？美容院に行った。すごいかわいい。本当ありがとう。どこの美容院？お子さんのやる。Selamat siang. Hello everyone. 안녕하세요. Xin chào. สวัสดีค่ะ你好。こんにちは。みんなで一緒に楽しく日本語の発音を練習しましょう。
It looks very wonderful.
Thank you.
Toda Sensei, we have one question from Dr. Kinoshita.
Yes.
Can you say it on your
okay. It's great that the students can give such a specific comments after the instruction. That's really great. But did you find any cases that students' feedback actually isn't correct and giving some misleading advices?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Kinoshita. That was what we worried about when we started this course. Can a non-native speaker of Japanese correct other people's pronunciation when they don't know, because they're non-native speakers. But as I showed in this result, students learn so much from the video contents, and the lecture video explains the phonetic system of Japanese. And after learning all these phonological knowledge, they can apply their knowledge to give feedback to others. That's why we found there are so many precise comments. It was really surprising because we just wondered if this system works, And when we tried, you saw the results. Most people are really giving specific comments and concrete comments. So it worked really well. So we are very happy. Thank you very much for your question.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. If there's no further questions or comments, we close the presentation. Okay. Okay.
I have a little message from Janet. Dr. Lee, thank you very much for your comment, Janet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's look really fantastic, really attractive and professionally done. If I'm learning Japanese, I would really greatly appreciate material like that.
Thank you so much. I understand that Thai lecturers at ANU are trying very hard to give students really interesting lessons. When I was at the ANU on my sabbatical, I actually saw a few Thai lectures and joined your lessons to learn how system works. And it was very good, very interactive and very interesting. So please say hello to everybody at ANU. Thank you.
You do. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Also, Professor Toda, one audience, Juan Wang, asks
Is this a free course? Yes, yes. MOOC is all free. So as I said, MOOC is open to everybody in the world. Whenever you want to learn something new, you can access to edX or Coursera, to a major global MOOC platform. And there are thousands of courses available. And how system works is you can apply for verified certificate. And if you need certificate to apply for a new job or whatever, you know, to show your qualification, you will pay a little bit of money to edX to be able to get certificate, not to us, but to edX. And then you can get issued verified certificate. But if you don't need certificate, you can just log in as an audit, and everything is free. So it's an open education system. I think it's great. Give everybody opportunity to learn whatever they learn, you know, and the distance doesn't matter. Financial situation doesn't matter. So I think it's a new approach to education in the future. Thank you. It's great that you have a production team to create the MOOC. Thank you, Janet. Yeah, it's a lot of work, you know. We worked so hard to produce this, this course.
Toda Sensei, then who gonna pay you? Who gonna pay your work? The volunteer.
It's all, you know, motivation as a teacher to provide education for free to everybody around the world, especially pronunciation. A lot of people say we have no chance to learn pronunciation, you know, and teachers say we don't know how to teach pronunciation. And that in a lot of cases in overseas, a lot of non-native speaker Japanese teachers are teaching Japanese, you know, and that's why I wanted to produce this course. It helps both teachers and students. Juan, Won Sensei, thank you very much for your comment. Thank you for sharing this, Toda Sensei. Thank you for watching.
No, thank you very much, Toda Sensei. Really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm actually taking up other languages on edX, like Chinese. I did beginning and intermediate level Chinese on edX. I learned Chinese at ANU.
Wow.
When I was a student.
So,
thank you very much. I have about 2 more minutes. Any other questions? One more minute. Dr. Lee, thank you very much for calling.
There is one question from Unsan. How do learners get paired up?
Oh, yes. This is a great question, Dr. Kim. It's automatically organized. So we produced a system where you listen to the recorded pronunciation of a peer, and when you actually send 5 feedbacks, straight away you start receiving feedbacks from others. So this is an automatic system. You don't have to pair up students yourself manually.
Okay, so it's automatic pairing system.
Yeah, algorithm.
Okay. Can I have another follow-up question? Because I've never actually trusted students evaluating each other's, because they're all non-native speakers, but it sounds like that it's quite a manageable project. And I think it's very important to have this knowledge to evaluate, analyze your friend's pronunciation. So I was wondering if there's any gaps between advanced learners and poor learners, you know, like evaluate each other, because sometimes some students might not recognize, you know, the sounds properly. How do you deal with this situation?
Yes, I have the same question as well, because this is the first pronunciation related course on global MOOC edX. So we challengers, you know, and this is a very good point. We wonder the same thing. I think the important thing is to create a very good lecture content. That's very important, where a student can learn phonological system and sound system properly and apply the knowledge to give feedback to others. So it's our challenge to produce really good lectures. And if you ask native speaker of Japanese to assess other people's pronunciation, you cannot trust native speakers either, because they don't know, you know, how to evaluate pronunciation, because they're not educated at school. You know, they have some grammatical knowledge, but nothing at all. You know, they were taught about pronunciation. So you can trust the learners more than the native speakers from that respect, I think.
That's a really great point. I strongly agree with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Analyzing something doesn't necessarily doesn't necessarily come naturally, actually, unless you are educated or have the knowledge to analyze, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In Korean, you have Renes and Fortis. It's very hard to distinguish, you know, sound system in Korean. And you have to be taught, you know, you have to know. Even if you're not native speaker of Korean, if you learn phonological system of Korean, you can actually focus on, you know, when you're doing mutual evaluation, you can focus on that point. It's much more precise than just a native speaker of Korean who doesn't have any phonological knowledge, I relate. So
Thank you.
How do learners get paired up? This is the last question, Dr. Kim. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Professor Toda. So it's a time for break. So yeah, we have a 10 minutes of break. You can use chat to say hello to anyone you know. Also, yeah, then we can return back to the station at 20 past 4. Okay, yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Lee 先生、ありがとうございました。お疲れ様でした。
お疲れ様でした。
ありがとうございました。
お疲れ様でした。ですね。
Sorry. I did that again. Hi, everyone. It's 4:20, so we want to restart our session. We plan to have Dr. Sachiko Sosa's presentation on this slot, but it looks like Dr. Sosa has not made to this Zoom room yet. She's from Helsinki, and there's quite a lot of time difference, so there might have been some issues. So we are going to have a presenter for the Janet Fengfu from Australian National University. She's going to talk about sight, sound, and silence, interactive activities, and the pacing in remote language classroom. So thank you, Janet.
Hi, thank you for the introduction. Let me start by sharing my PowerPoint with you to see if that's actually work. Can you see it well enough?
Yes.
I'm not sure
we
if
are
you
seeing a presenter view.
Oh, okay. Here is something that I think that's going to be a problem. So has it changed? You still see the
You can, yes, swap display.
Right. Okay, fantastic. There's just one button that say swap the display.
Yep.
So this is exactly what we all have to deal with on a day, maybe not the daily basis, but more often than not in our Zoom classroom. Right. So what I'm going to present here is may not be something so tech savvy. I wouldn't have a kind of multiple platform knowledge and example to share you, but I just gather from my trial and error of what I have learned in the last 2 semesters. I will just start with the context of Thai language learning and teaching here, and then the advantage and disadvantage and the classroom activities that I use and what I observe from peer learning and my final words on these issues. So just to give you a little bit of context here, Thai at ANU is a less commonly taught language. And even before I got here, I just arrived in January this year. Even before I got here, it's already 100% live online delivery. And the courses here we offer to both ANU and OUA students, and by OUA I mean Open University. I lost the connection for a second. Yeah.
You seem to have lost Janet.
Yep. I'm back. Can you see me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. I seem to lost the connection for a second. Okay, so with the mixture of both OUA and ANU students, it means that we have a mixed cohort and they have broader background and they have different expectations for their language learning here. And also with the class delivery, we do 2 sessions of 90 minutes classes per week and 12 weeks per semester. And with 12 weeks for semester, for me, in my personal experience, I find that's quite short because you teach them for 6 weeks and then there's 2-week break and then another 6 weeks. I think for advanced students, this break is fine. But for beginner students, 2 weeks are a long time to retain or to forget what they have learned prior to the break. So we have to come up with something to keep them engaged and keep practicing during the 2-week break. And when I see the actual teaching time, I have to remind everyone and remind myself and remind the student that, look, according to ANU workload, each subject actually expected 130 hours of work in total from the student is spread out over 12 weeks and including exam period. And when the students see that, they know that even though they only have 3 hours, contact hours per week, the course actually demand their commitment from what they have access to the teacher. And with the situation that I have here, I've been teaching 3 courses so far, the intermediate level and 2 courses at the advanced level. The advantages that I have in this situation is the fact that the student number is really small. And by really small, I mean less than 6 students. And that's in 4 language class, that's an ideal number, right? Because you have time to spend helping the student and correcting them and everything else. And also because of such a small number, everyone participates.
Sorry, everyone. I'm sure Janet will come back.
Oh, sorry for the technical heads up. Okay. And because of the small class number, they cannot escape. I see them, I see everyone, and I do feel that sometimes students feel like they're being watched in the same way that they always have someone being watched or ask someone in an environment, in the classroom environment. And another advantage that I would like to point out here, that's because it's such a small class, the fact that students get on well with each other is really a major role in their learning experience. And that would bring me to the advantage in this situation. Because of the small number, students have less opportunities for collaborative group work. I pair them up and they can do pair works, but they feel like, well, there's just only a few of us and we would like to interact with the lecturer. That's something that I got a feedback from, but I would like to encourage them to talk among each other and just get comfortable speaking the language that they're learning. Another disadvantage is that comes with small class is that the atmosphere could get somewhat uncomfortable or intense easily when class members don't get on well with each other. Another disadvantage is that when a student, sometimes he or she, they lag behind and they show clearly visible sign of distress. See if the student withdraw, move themselves away from the class, or put a piece of paper in front of their face, or just put their hand over their head like that. So a visual sign of distress is actually affect the whole classroom, because when there's such a small class, when in a speaker wheel or even with the PowerPoint sharing and share screen, they see each other. And when that happens, there's something that I have to gently intervene and talk to the student. Another disadvantage is that when it's a small group, the gap between students' competence level, even though they're in the same class, they did the placement test, they passed the placement test, but at some point there may be a gap, and that gap need bridging, or else the classroom could be quite not so easy to manage. But luckily, because of the small number, bridging the gap to trying to bring everyone on the same pace, it's doable because of the small class as well. So the classroom activities that I use, it may seem like any other language classroom doing that, right? And I mean, I was reflecting on this because of the small number. If I teach them face-to-face, I probably have them sit in a round table or in a U-shaped seating area so that everyone can see and interact instead of me standing in the front of the classroom. And we use grammar and we try to make the best use of class time to maximize our interaction and practice. They get to listening, the listening assignment, they have to do it prior to class. And when we come to class, we break it down to smaller chunks so that they get to do it step by step, but it's all rely on them being responsible and access the material that I have put up on Watto prior to classroom. And there's the reading material. All of this is just like any other language classroom, right? Because you want to give them multi skills of competence level. And we also use this. And one thing that I got a feedback from students is that the value of peer learning is really great in a small online classroom environment. Because we have to bear in mind that this student, one of them in Queensland, one of them in Sydney, and two of them in Canberra, and the other one in Western Australia, they come from different places, and they may not have a chance to interact with a native speaker in their everyday environment. So when they come to class or class time is the only time that they get to do their speaking practice and actually express their thought in the language. So we do speaking, we do translation exercise, impromptu and homework. And this is where peer learning or peer questioning come really handy, because if I give them one sample sentences and have all of them do the translation, the small classroom size allow me to put all of their version on the same document and show them on screen share. And by checking at them and ask them, why did you do this? Why did you do that? They actually share their understanding of the grammar in ways that I noticed that have them explaining to each other actually that's the best way to check whether they understand. And they use a kind of simpler word than sometimes that I can do. So I value that. For example, in English, you would learn that to switch on and off and to do and for open and close, you use these two sets of words differently. In Thai, there will be time that words are so similar, but you use them differently. I explain to them in ways that me as a language instructor explain and give them example. But as a native speaker, when they explain that among themselves, it's much simpler than the way that I approach it. And I think it has to do with how we do the cross languages translation. So I value that when that dynamic happen in class, and it's all possible because they open up and they trust their classmate and they allow themselves to make a mistake and learn from the mistake. And that's one of the really valuable feedback that students gave me, that look, they learn better when they make mistake. And I think the friendly environment that we have in class allow them to open up and be vulnerable and make silly mistake and laugh at each other and move on and learning the next thing. I have my fair share of mistakes, and of course, internet connection and some technological hiccup play important role in this. When we switch on normal classroom to Zoom classroom, I had the opportunity to attend trainings, and in those trainings, even though I start here teaching online, but those kind of add more to the materials that you can use online, like online platform. You can use different things. You can use Menti, you can use Socrates, you can use Padlet. It's countless, right? The platform that you can use. When I implement those things in class, one thing that I realize is that actually it may not work in the way that we experience in our training. And there's just so many factors involved. First and foremost, we have office computer. We have a more powerful computer, could be laptop, could be a desktop. And sometimes we have double or even triple monitors. And for us to hop between different screens and to kind of, okay, now open this page and you can do this and you can do that. It's not the same from the student. They use laptop. The laptops may not be on the same caliber that we have at our office. And sometimes they use tablets. And there's certain situation that they use their phone because they're traveling, there's something going on, they don't want to miss the class, they just want to be a part of it, even though it just means listening in to everything and couldn't participate as much. So I think this is something that I have to be in mind and learn from my experience. Another thing is the internet. Speaking of consistent internet, right? I got dropped out and locked out twice already, and I have to lock myself back in. And luckily, it doesn't take too long for me to log back in, and we can continue. I can continue this presentation. And if you work from home, you may choose the bigger, faster, better package for your home internet. I rely on my office internet. But for the student, maybe they don't have the advantage that educators do. They share hall of residence internet, and sometimes they use their home internet. And some of the students, they may live in the kind of slightly more remote area, or the area in which they live, people sharing bandwidth a lot, and they drop out. Even though I can hear myself clearly, for them, they sound like, they hear something like that. I have no idea how it's going to be at their end. And this is something that I have to bear in mind a lot. And I already mentioned the screen hop. Students struggle with 2 screens or even more screens if we use multi-platform. And this is something that I learned. Even if it's come from the best place in our heart to integrate multimedia, to integrate multi-platform activities, but they may not find it the same way. They may say, well, can we just stick to a chat in Zoom? Because whatever you said, you say, we got it straight away. Can we just give our answer to you in chat box? And that's the comment, because for them, switching platform, it takes more cognitive energy than just, okay, we're just going to use Zoom and everything going to be in Word document. I'm just going to use a kind of simple, something that everyone is more familiar with. Another thing is the dedicated space. And I know that when we work from home, we have to make it work for the situation, because we teach and it's our job responsibilities. We're trying to find dedicated space. And I mainly use my office for that reason. But for the student situation, they may not have the privacy or the space to study. I made a plan for the student to sit in for the exam. I know it's a bad idea using live Zoom and have an exam, but that's something that I need to test and make sure that they can do it in real time and it's fair for everyone. And the next door decided to test their sound system. And it's not the student's fault. There's nothing that he can do about it. And sometimes their loved ones doing the house chores, the dryer just got turned on, and he said, Ajahn Janit, I'm so sorry. I already told my girlfriend that I have to sit in an exam, but she just turned the dryer on. Can't I just step out for 5 seconds and turn it off? It happens. It happens, and what can you do? Will you make that student resit the exam because he stepped out for 5 seconds to turn off the dryer? I couldn't find it in me to make him resit the exam for the second time because of that. And sometimes the pets that they have, their love owners, the cat want to get involved with the monitor. And sometimes there's babies at home. And when the babies want to cry, they just have to cry. So this is the kind of thing that I learned along the way, and it's make me aware of all these issues. And from learning those issues, right, one thing that I also learned is that, yes, we're trying to keep it simple. We don't hop platform, and I try not to hop screen, because I need to be able to approach this from the student situation and student point of view. And one thing that I learned and I stick to is that I have to be aware of the visual field on the screen when I create the materials. And yes, of course, everyone knows this, right? You use PowerPoint presentation and you need to make it clean and the landscape laid out, good size text. That's something that everyone knows already. But it's just something that I have to really implement into the way that I create the material, whether it's reading material, whether it's grammar point. And if possible, I try to create the materials that all related issues can be seen in one horizontal page. When the student look at their screen, they see the reading text, they see the vocab, and they see guided questions. I try to kind of organize it in such a way that this is possible and the materials has to work for both print out and screen viewing. Because before this, when I create materials, I just stick to the portrait one, right? Okay, reading text here, the vocab at the back or the vocab right after the reading passages, and then the exercise, a grammar point or whatever. But it works when the student can flip through physical paper or if they have the print out course book. But when it's come to online, even though it may sound simplistic, but having everything on one visual field across the screen is really helpful for the student. And another thing that I have learned is we all get uncomfortable with dead air, especially in Zoom class. If someone went quiet or suddenly you wonder what's going on. Where is the sound? Has she got disconnected again? But when it's come to class, one thing that I learned is that maybe it's not always dead air. Maybe it's a calming silence. When you ask them to, okay, this is what I have explained to you, and this is the 5 simple exercises that I would like you to do, and let them have the calming silence instead of me feel like I have to fill up the silence all the time. Filling up silence is distracting. Just when you're in real face-to-face classroom, when everyone is quiet, it really is dead air, right? Or when they split them to groups and have them do the exercise work, you kind of walk around the class and stick your nose in and see what they have written on the worksheet. We can do that. And online, you can have the breakout room, you can hop from room to room. You can also do that. But in my situation, my class is so small, and I just have to get comfortable with the silence and don't feel it as dead air. And always like, okay, send a message in the chat box. Let me know if you have any problem. I'm here, and I'm just gonna give you a few minutes to work on whatever you're working on. That's also apply for both students who prepare before they join class and who did not came prepare before class. Both groups need time. Students who can prepare, they may perform better for the exercise, and they're able to kind of explain themselves in Thai, where they decide to choose certain grammar point or choose a certain word. And when they do that, their friends learn from them. And I can help make things clearer. I can help add more examples and so on and so forth. And yeah, this is something that I have learned, that no one likes dead air, but in this situation, we just have to kind of, okay, learn it. This is part of it. And I don't think anyone likes to be talked at or have the noise that fill up silence at them all the time. And if it's quiet, you just have to just enjoy the silence. And my last point is the technology. I am a digital immigrant. And at first I thought, okay, my students, they're digital native. They're probably more tech savvy than I am. So I'm gonna ask them to do this assignment. They can do the voice recording. They can do the PowerPoint, and they can just talk over their PowerPoint as part of their assignment. And it's turned out that we don't know how to do it. Can you help us? Is it okay for us to use Zoom account and we record in our Zoom to fulfill the assignment? I was like, oh, okay. I'm glad they asked. I'm glad they asked that, look, we need help with this. So is it a generation thing? I don't know. Maybe you have students who are more tech savvy than mine, but it's always good to offer them that, look, if you have any issue with technology, I will see what I can help you with, even though I am not the most tech savvy person that I know, but I will try my best to help you or point you to the right place when you encounter any kind of problem. And with students at uni, ANU students, their experience with online learning also rely on other classes, right? Which means that they rely on lecturers lecturers like us to introduce them to different resources and different technique, different technology to use for class. And sometimes I have to okay, accept my limit. Maybe there's better way to implement different platform to class, but this is what I can do in the limited time and resources that I have teaching them. So just to be in the limit of 3 minutes, my final word for all that I have learned in the last 2 semesters teaching here, the final word that I remind myself and I would like to open to the discussion is empathy. This situation of students being trapped at home and they couldn't come to class, they couldn't connect with their peer, is new to everyone. Especially, it's harder for young people because when they come to uni, they want to develop their social skill, they want to make friends, they want to do this and that, and they don't have the opportunity. And in my 2 semester experience here, I have witnessed students deteriorating in terms of mental health issues. And I think as lecturers, as course convener, of course, we're not trained to help them with that. But I think some empathy and some understanding and the ability to be kind of flexible and help them through this tough time, encourage them to seek help from the counseling services or kind of check on them. I think that's something that I think I could do as part of their learning experience so that they are able to just finish the class learning something and maintain their good mental health. And that will be it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. If anyone have any questions or comments, please send me by text or you can speak up, whichever suits you. While we are waiting for some other people thinking up their comments, Janet, I found the concept of calming silence. It's very new and it's really interesting. I never thought that way. How does that land on a student? Just how can that concept be communicated and land on a student? Does it take a long time?
I just told them that, look, I will give you a few minutes to do this exercise, okay? And if I went quiet, don't worry that I neglect you or I disappear. I just want to give you time to focus on this instead of keep talking at you, okay? Just do your thing and I'm around. If you have an issue, just send me a message in a chat and I will hop over to your breakout room. Just take your time. And whenever we're in class and I'm looking for the file to show the right screen share and everything, I feel like I have to narrate myself doing that, or else they wouldn't know because they just see, why is her face so close to the camera? What is she doing? That's what the students see us, right? But if, okay, I'm gonna look for this file, I think I have it ready. Oh, here it is. I'm not sure if any of you find yourself narrating yourself in class just to fill up silence, just or not to fill up silence, but just to keep the student on the same page as you. And I found myself doing that to the point that, okay, this is necessary. But when I give them a task, just give them silence, give them time to do it.
Thank you. We received a comment saying that it's great to hear such an honest experience of this year.
Thank you.
Really, we went through, isn't it? Any other people, comments or questions? I think we all had quite a similar experience throughout this year. So if there's any comments. Okay, in that case, well, we were planning on having the talk by Dr. Sachiko Sosa from the University of Helsinki today. but unfortunately, we seem not to have her here. We try to get her talk in some form so that we can share what she has prepared. I don't know what happened to her today, but that's something we're planning to do. But because we have a little bit more time, we decided to have some little bit of impromptu.
I got just an email from her.
Yeah.
She misunderstood the calendar time because they different. So I just asked her send email. Just join now, right now. So
she might be able to give us talk.
I hope so. I haven't got the reply yet from her. It's yeah. In particular, this moment is that we just changed the time for summer saving time. So I think I demanded her, but it's confusing.
It's such a 2020 experience we're having. So maybe we wait for a few minutes. While we are waiting for possibly the Dr. Sosa coming, maybe if everyone don't mind, we can chat about some of the shared experience. We quickly thought up about 3 things. Perhaps maybe we can share our experience with our challenges we had, and especially what was more difficult in the online environment compared to in-person teaching. Or did we find anything positive, anything good from this remote teaching? And also we're keen to hear all the audience's experience with assessment. So if anyone willing to share your experience with us, we'd love to hear. Is it anyone?
I actually would like to draw on your experience. How do you cope with dead air or silence in the classroom? Because in online class, that's what I mean. Because in the real face-to-face class, right, you find a way to get the student. You can see from their facial expression whether they're engaged, but they just need time to think about their answer. But in online class, sometimes you don't have that kind of body language or understanding that you drawn from their body language, unlike the face-to-face classroom.
Yeah, I find it very, very difficult, and I often find myself keep talking a lot. So, okay. So, anyone else? Anything that you can share? Is there anyone who had some positive experience with this remote learning? I have a calming silence here, but one thing I found my own experience was that sometimes the students who have sort of anxiety issues or mental health issues seems to find attending to the class online a bit easier than in-person class. So I see some potential in this remote teaching. Maybe that's one way for the students who otherwise find it difficult to deal with people to come and join and learn in the class.
That's a really good point, actually, because last semester I have one student. She's an adult student, and she joined the class through OUA, and this is a kind of one-to-one tutorial time that I allow each of them to have. And I got this kind of comment from more than one student. They said that, "Thank you for making this happen. You're the only person that I spoke to today." because of the lockdown. And I think for the student, when they have the kind of structured time, even though it's online, it's helped them kind of get through it. Somehow it's give them a sense of purpose in how they manage their time. But having said that, the younger student, the younger people, I think that they tend to find it harder than older and more experienced people.
I got the suggestion that maybe we can do the breakout room, but I don't know how the audience feel. You may all disappear because that's not what you were signing up for, but shall we break it up and have a chat? Is there any, yeah, there's some.
Yeah, I just got a reply from her.
Yeah.
They said that she will join right now.
Right
but,
now. Okay.
Yeah, she's joining from the Helsinki, so it might take a longer time. I don't know.
Shouldn't, but yeah, well, that's great. Thank you everyone for patiently waiting for the this mishap. But it looks like we can have Sachiko's talk. So let's wait for them Sachiko's talk. But while we are waiting, if there's any comments or anything, that'll be great.
So, if I may, Itani Sensei. Itani Sensei.
Okay.
So I just, are you teaching at the CIT at the moment? Or?
I am, but I actually had a question or comment I wanted to make before. If so shall I just say something before you ask me the question, or what shall I do?
Whatever you like.
Yeah.
I guess.
I just would like to say this. Kinoshita Sensei just said, like students it's easier for students to, or not maybe easier, can join the Zoom room, and then, they what's the thing? They have their presence in the Zoom meetings, not like in a classroom or something like that. I don't teach directly students at the moment, but in my support of other lecturers and this semester, I found in a classroom, maybe some students can actually, I don't know, hide under the textbook or behind the textbook, or sit at the very back if they're not prepared. But with Zoom, with fewer students, we found that some, like it can actually cause a little bit of stress as well. Like they cannot, even if they're not prepared, if they don't want to say things, their face is so big on the screen shared with people. So I think it's actually a quite interesting point of remote learning, remote teaching with few small number of students. I didn't realize this until this year. I thought we are so focused on making everybody have a voice in a class and build a community that's safe and comfortable to say things. They no longer need to hide, with this, everyone can say things. Like there's no students who leaves the classroom without saying a word during the class time, that kind of thing. But I think we were kind of interested in finding out, the reverse is also true too. Like some students find it be intimidating, like their face is always that large on the screen. They feel they need to say things, or they're sort of exposed in a way. I had some students tell the lecturer, okay, excuse me, can you just not ask me question today? Because I'm not prepared. So I'm not saying, you know, it's bad or good or anything like that. It's just something we, you know, we have to think as well, maybe. It was new to me. When I found out this, I thought, oh, okay, you know, I never thought about this before. So that's something I wanted to share. And Dakia-san, sensei, what was your question? Yes, I don't teach at CIT Solutions, but I know I support people who do.
Yeah, I just curious that what happened or what they're doing in other institutes rather than ANU.
Okay.
CIT, for example.
Yeah. Our situation is quite unique in a sense because the majority of teaching happens on a one-on-one situation. So we do use those virtual platform, but it's not very often we need to use that breakout room, pair them up. Sometimes it happens and then we have to actually learn how to do it. But I think it's basically maybe similar in a way in everywhere else. We do virtually. If it's one-on-one, it's slightly easier. You know, share screen, things like that. If it's group, we try to utilize breakout room. And then I found, I don't know how other people found, a lot of tutors, teachers, language teachers find, you know, in a classroom situation, in a break, you know, when you get students to do pair work or group work, you know, we all have multiple pairs of eyes at the back of our heads. So we are sort of monitoring other students while we're paying attention to one particular pair of students, but we are kind of monitoring other students in the classroom and then listening in what they're saying or, you know, where they're stuck and things like this. So you always go to them straight after you finish with that particular paper. But when you do the breakout room, it's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to monitor whole class, and I wonder how other people are doing it.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Janet. Yeah, just a suggestion that when you speak, it's better have show your face to everyone so that otherwise it feels strange to look at the black with just name. So,
Hang on.
no, yeah, if you finish, it's okay. I have been talking with emailing with Sosa from Helsinki. She has some problem in joining Zoom, so probably, yeah, just really sorry for that. This is total my mistakes. If you could, of course, you can show the slide. Yeah, I've got a slide, but yeah, it's probably not much meaningful to show the PowerPoint slide. So I will upload the slide web page later on. So yeah, what Kinoshita Sensei? What is there anyone who want to share your experience of any kind? Actually, our first initial plan is to have this kind of audience voice session because we have many different variety of experience, different situations. So I thought that's a good idea to share that kind of experience together. So if you have any idea, interesting experience, just don't be shy. Just pop in and share with us.
can I ask a question to anyone in the audience? If you could write if you don't want to talk, you can write in the chat box or whatever. But how did you manage the exam? We became online, and then exam was one of the issues. We found it quite tricky because online exam, we can't really control what students are doing on their end, but we cannot have exam. And what's the best way? And is there anyone's experience? Anyone happy to share their experiences with the exam in this particular strange year?
This is Marina Hirose. Can I break your silence?
Yeah.
I have read the article that someone posted on WhatsApp before. It was an article about like how can we avoid cheating online, and then the answer was kind of like it's really hard to avoid student doing the cheating, but the only way is talking or chatting. That's the way that students can't avoid. So in Japanese spoken 1 and 2, we have an oral test, like a kind of like a face-to-face but virtually. So I think that's the way that we can see their real level of spoken skill.
Yes. Yes, spoken skill oral test would be a good way of assessing. Is there anyone have anything to share about the written exam? That was one of the things we struggled with. And I did something brutal that I gave students way too many questions so that if they are looking up every single questions, they can't finish. So that's kind of one way of trying to get the gauge of their learning. And I'm just quite curious if there's anyone else had any kind of strategy with the written exam.
Hi, Kinoshita Sensei.
Hi.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I did the Japanese grammar and expressions last semester, or semester 1.
Yeah.
There were 2 written exams for that, a mid-sem and an end of sem. And the first one was 1 hour, and that was a really short time period. You had to do a lot of the questions that I think Ikeda Sensei.
Ishihara Sensei.
Ishihara, maybe. I should remember. It was a very short time to do a lot of questions, and definitely. I mean, I didn't look stuff up, but if you did, you would run out of time very quickly. If 1 hour went very quickly, doing about 15 quite large questions. I think you know what the format looks like. It required a lot of typing, a lot of thinking as well. So even if you had studied quite a bit, it was hard to do it quickly online. And then the second exam was longer. It was 2 hours, I think, for a similar amount of work. And I remember leaving the first exam like, oh man, I wish I had more time to get it done. But it was definitely a different experience doing exam online. We weren't monitored through protractor.
It's great to hear students' perspective. So did you feel it's kind of dispiriting sort of experience?
I can turn my camera on. Sorry, I know the whole black screen is a little daunting. I came back from the gym, so I look a little red. But what was the question again? Was
it a dispiriting sort of experience, or?
Yeah, that would differ from person to person. Yeah, it was a little dispiriting. But I mean, if you attend all the classes and tutorials, it's similar. You still have that cohesion with your cohort.
Yeah.
But yes, of course, it's it is quite dispiriting doing an exam online, but I mean, you had to adapt. We had to do it somehow. I mean, and we weren't quick enough like some other courses that just made it written assignments or essays. So yeah, some courses just had to go do the exam. And I think that might change if we continue online to have less exams, right? Less exams. It might be more quizzes. Oh yeah, because he said he wanted to make the whole course quizzes, but there wasn't enough time in that 4 weeks to transition. So that's okay. That's okay for this year, but I mean, maybe next year that will change.
Yeah, thank you. Hi everyone. It's a bit delayed, but Dr. Sosa is here, so now she can present for us. So you may have some plans for Friday evening, but if you haven't got anything, please stick around. Now we are going to have a presentation from Dr. Sachiko Sosa from the University of Helsinki. We don't get to hear the story from Finland that often, so I'm quite excited to have Sosa Sensei. Sosa Sensei, could you share the screen? Let's see. Yeah. Excellent.
At first, I'm really sorry for this delay and everything. I misunderstood the calendar, so I'm really sorry for that. Can I start? Yuko sensei.
はい、お願いします。
はい、すみません。本当にすみませんでした。Hello everyone, my name is Sachiko Sosa from University of Helsinki. Right now, I'm working as a senior lecturer at the Japanese Studies of Humanity. Quickly, general information. This is maybe not interesting. Right now, remote teaching and actually and working studying has been expanded at least until the end of this year. So because working at the campus has not been permitted, basically allowed, or remote teaching has been streamed from the teacher's home. Before I talk about our Japanese studies, some basic information about University of Helsinki. The university has HUPE, the Center for University Teaching and Learning. This is a kind of pedagogical center for university teaching and learning. And HUPE has given the study module for 60 credits for teaching staffs, mainly in Finnish and so on. And in this corona crisis time, HUPE gives instructions, tips, and advice to teachers a lot. This helps us a lot. This is a basic instructions or tips for remote teaching from HUPE and faculty. Clarify the key learning outcomes of the course. Pay particular attention to interaction and workload. Focus on the most important and essential issues for recreate the goal of the course. Shorten your lectures and dedicate the time saved to interaction. Teachers should have a break in their lectures every 20 minutes. It means that, or the remote teaching and remote studying is a kind of harder or more difficult than normal contact teaching. Oh, I'm sorry. We, at least in the Japanese studies, use Moodle, email, and sometimes students use Kahoot and WhatsApp. And in autumn, we use Zoom live stream and Flinger as an online package. This is a kind of list of practice and homeworks by Moodle. Some of them are totally independent, some of them are group works. For example, translation practice or dictation practice are done independent work. But for example, in kanji review test, this is not a total exam, but just for review. Some of them are made by teacher, but some of them are made by students group work. And this writing means writing itself is of course independent work, but they have a kind of workshop group in Moodle, and they can comment or maybe comment through the Moodle. Maybe this is not Yes. As I said at first, remote teaching and studying is very demanding for us all, but maybe some good features also are found on Zoom or online. For example, group work. In usual classroom, I mean contact teaching, the students tend to sit in almost, or actually all the time, almost the same place and to form groups with always the same classmates. But in Zoom classroom, the teacher can divide them into groups. Usually we use the automatic division, so as a result, the students work with different classmates every time. Maybe this is a good point. Yes. Many of the students said that remote studying is very hard, but some students answered to their feedback that they like to study independently and without strict schedule or timetable or something like that. We have many, of course, programs and challenging difficulties in learning or teaching in online, remote studying and remote teaching. One of them is, of course, motivation and stress. For example, first-year students or maybe younger students tend to get more stressed than older or more experienced students. Bigger research at the university has also shown the same results as Japanese studies. Sorry, this is not in spring one. Yes, it's spring, yes. In the spring, because the exceptional situation just happened quickly, we decided to teach only through the Moodle. But after these feedbacks, we decided that we teach through the Zoom streams as a live teaching in spring. And now I show some approaches to remote teaching and studies in Japanese studies at the University of Helsinki. We have some course assistants in many courses. They are the advanced students and also the Japanese exchange students to Helsinki. Under this crisis, of course, the number of the assistants is less than normal, especially we have less Japanese exchange students. But anyway, they help to cover personal sports in remote study. It means that in remote study, the teachers has difficulties to contact with students during the class. In the remote study, the assistant's function is more as a bridge between teachers and the students. And yes, this program has started 2 years ago, and this program has been worked very well in Japanese study. We got very good feedback from the students too. And we also have problems with exams. At first, it is very hard to oversee the situation. I do not want to say, but it may be possible to cheat during the test time, exam time, because this is totally remote. We cannot see anything. And another problem is kanji exam. It is very hard or maybe impossible to test if they can write kanjis or not. In advanced classes, we do not test to write kanjis anyway, so it is okay, but Japanese 1, for example, Japanese 2 also maybe, studies still very, very basic kanjis like yama ya kai wa anyway. So we hope that they can write kanjis also, but it is hard to test online. So if some of you has a good tip for it, I really want to know that. So in reality, we can test only how to read and meanings and maybe how to use at least, and in Japanese 3 or something. We usually use the model quiz form for kanji exam if it's remote. This is my pilot approach for exam, but this is not for Japanese 1 or 2. This was just for advanced Japanese class. I taught kanji and vocabulary for advanced Japanese in spring. It was not traditional kanji exam, and this is a kind of homework style task. It means that the students can use any devices as dictionary, grammar books, and so on. And also, because it is remote and homework style, they can use own time for answer the exam at home. For example, maybe someone use only 2 hours, like as usual exam. Someone can use 2 days if want. The task, the only small part of the exam is close to the traditional task, like how to read, what does it mean, etc. But most part of the exam is like reading new text and answer explaining the meaning of the word, or in kanji, in context, construction of kanji, etc. It means that I really want that the students, especially advanced Japanese students, learn how to, what can I say in English? How to study independently or how to work with Japanese independently after these classes, because the advanced Japanese is the last class for them, if I mean the pure learning Japanese. Of course, we have some special courses like a discourse analysis or social linguistics, but this is not for the language course. So after the advanced Japanese course, I really want that they can study or work with Japanese without teachers. So I would like to test such kind of skills also. Just a moment. This is a kind of feedbacks from the students and assistants about remote studies. I'm sorry, I wrote strange, but anyway, most of them answered for me that the Zoom is easier to understand the grammar, especially. Maybe kanji and vocabulary too, but especially grammar. But on the other hand, many of them answered that remote study, it could be Moodle, Zoom, anything. Remote studies load much more than normal contact teaching, but the reality, we decreased a lot the load of the work, but the student feels like that. For future shortly, actually, I have no ideas yet for the future because we don't know anything about the corona situation in spring, I mean next spring. But I guess the remote study teaching will continue in Helsinki at least, because now the situation is not looks good. So in that case, we should have bigger questionnaires or feedback or such kind of things on courses, because we have to know what is the reality of the students and so on. But on the other hand, the teaching staffs like me or my colleagues are also, of course, tired. So we have to discuss what are the best things for us all. And many of the students also fear that maybe if they can learn Japanese as much as they want with the remote studying, because this is much demanding. Maybe the start point would be admit that remote study and the teachings are difficult. But after that, we have to know what can we do. This is my presentation, and this is almost a report from the University of Helsinki, especially Japanese studies. I'm really sorry. I'm just upset because just only half 30 minutes ago, I just found out my presentation is actually today and right now. So I'm really sorry. My presentation was made, but kind of messing. I'm really sorry. 木下先生、ごめんなさい。
Well, thank you very much, Sosa Sensei. And it was very interesting to hear from a different part of the world. And then I believe the coronavirus situation is quite different place to place. Is it very bad in Helsinki at the moment, or is it more or less under control?
Yes, it is starting to baden right now.
Yeah.
Increasingly.
Yes. So I open the floor to the audience. If there's any questions or comments, please send in by text, or well, we can just talk with a microphone if you prefer. So while we are waiting, I'm just curious, what's the student cohort like? Is it a lot of local students, or do you have a lot of international students? And how did they interact with COVID situation?
Do you mean the course assistants?
No, the students.
I'm sorry, students.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
The students in Helsinki in Japanese program, are they mostly Finn students, or do you have a lot of international students?
Most of them are Finnish,
okay.
But nowadays we have some international students, like one American, two Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but mostly Finnish.
Oh, okay. So the class size didn't necessarily change because of the COVID situation, because of the pandemic. Because
no, I think
that's a quite different condition from
really
we experienced in Australia, because we lost a lot of international students. So class size generally shrunk. So we have a different experience. Yeah.
This is interesting. I never thought that. Yes, okay.
We have a lot of Chinese students.
Sosa Sensei. I also heard that the Finnish universities, the students, very difficult to enter Japanese program. Sometimes more difficult than entering medicine school, something like that. Is it true? I mean, is it? I heard that it's very difficult to enter, get into a Japanese program.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, then entering sometimes more difficult than entering medical school. Is it true?
I don't know that. It is true that this is very, very difficult to enter the Japanese students as a major study, but I'm not sure it is actually harder than to medical studies or not. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay. Each year, do you have any fixed number of students, or you accept as many as students if they want to study Japanese?
I'm sorry, I have no numbers right now. I could say only that we take around 20 students in 2 years.
Oh, 20.
I don't remember anything, how many applicants we got. I'm sorry, I don't remember. And also I could say that many of the students want to study Japanese from Japanese 1, even though they are not major students. And for example, we can take only 20, at most 25 or 30 students for course, but around 100 students want to register. We got a lot of emails, etc. But this is not official number because this only a email or registration, etc. So, but
I envy you.
Why?
Because we cannot make a plan because we don't know how many students will take our course until we go to the first lecture. It's open. If it's most students want to take the Japanese course. I'm teaching first year Japanese course, but yeah. But sometimes it's make a huge difference in number. Yes, very difficult to prepare the classes.
I understand. This is difficult for you, of course. I understand.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
can I ask a question? It's really interesting to hear that your course entry number is so limited. Like, you know, it's restricted for 25 or 30 or such small number. And you have a lot of applicants. Why is that so limited in number?
Yes, actually, of course, this is not my decision, but anyway, I was told that if the class is big, it is difficult to contact with students. For example, we have a lot of writing tasks to students, but we have to read and check these writings. For example, if we would have 100 or something, we have to read 100 papers, etc. And actually, we have only right now 3 staffs, teaching staffs. So if we would like to contact with students nearly and a lot, maybe 30 would be maximum. At least I was told like that.
So the staff capacity issues.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? It's rare that we can hear from Finland, so do we have any other comments? Then if anyone else, if there's no one, can I ask one more question? I found it quite interesting that students found learning via Zoom is easier for grammar. You said for grammar learning, Zoom is easier. Do you know why?
It means that not compared with contact learning. I mean, compared to only
other
more
things.
Independent learning.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I said.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Because with some speaking from teachers, they have problem with understanding grammar. But so it is difficult to learn only in model. I'm sorry, I said clearly. Of course, contact learning is the best.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. If there's no more question or comment from the floor, we might conclude today's session. I'm so glad that we could have all the speakers, and then I would like to thank all the speakers today. The first speaker, Un-san, and then Toda Sensei from Japan, and Janet from ANU, and the Sosa Sensei. Thank you very much. And then we will have another session tomorrow. We start at 3 o'clock. The first talk is from US. So we hear the story from different parts of the world again. So I look forward to it. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
ありがとうございました。曽田先生、ありがとうございました。
はい、こちらこそ皆さん、本当にありがとうございました。
Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for all your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for you.
じゃあ、戸田先生、ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
とても勉強になりました。皆さんの発表で。Thank you very much. All the presentations are so interesting. Thank you.
Professor Toda, thank you for sending me the link. I will have a look at it after this. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good day.
Thank you.
ultimately, Yuri.
ゆりさん、ビルマ語のゆりさんかな。
もうレコード止めた方がいいかもしれませんね。